When Grandma asked, "How are you living in the house I bought you?" the entire room went silent. My heart dropped because I had no idea what she was talking about. Everyone at the table turned to look at me, waiting for me to answer, but I just sat there frozen. I looked at Grandma, trying to read her face, thinking maybe she was joking. But she wasn't. She looked genuinely confused, like she couldn't understand why I wasn't responding. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name's Emily Carter, I'm 26, and I'm from Ohio. I grew up in what I thought was a close, loving family. We spent every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Sunday dinner together. Family meant everything to us, or at least that's what I believed. When my parents passed away in a car accident when I was 18, everything changed. I was lost, heartbroken, and completely unsure of how to move forward. The one person who held me together was my grandma, Margaret. She was strong, wise, and full of love. She told me not to worry, that she'd take care of me, that I was her responsibility now. She'd always say, "Emily, your future is safe with me." I trusted her completely. She'd been the heart of our family for as long as I could remember. After my parents' funeral, Grandma took me in for a while. I finished high school, worked part-time, and tried to rebuild my life. She always encouraged me to study, to push myself. When I left for college, she hugged me and said, "Don't worry about anything, sweetheart. I have plans for you." At the time, I didn't ask what she meant. I thought she was just being caring and supportive, like always. College wasn't easy. I worked 2 jobs to cover my expenses, barely scraping by. There were times when I skipped meals or worked double shifts just to pay rent. But I made it through. Whenever I called Grandma, she'd remind me to stay focused and tell me everything would work out. Her voice always gave me comfort, even when everything else felt uncertain. After graduation, I moved back to my hometown. I rented a small 1-bedroom apartment downtown. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. I worked as a teacher's assistant at a local elementary school. Life was quiet but stable. I thought things were finally starting to fall into place. That's why Grandma's question at the family party hit me so hard. When she asked about the house, it didn't make sense. My heart was pounding. What house was she talking about? I looked around the table, and my cousin Rebecca suddenly looked uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be there. Her husband stared down at his plate. My stomach turned. I smiled awkwardly and said, "Grandma, what house?" But she just frowned, tilting her head. "The one I bought for you after you graduated, honey. Didn't you move in?" The room went completely silent again. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. My palms were sweating, and something deep inside me told me that whatever Grandma was talking about, it wasn't a mistake. It was something much bigger. Something I wasn't supposed to find out. Not like this. Grandma had mentioned years ago that she was saving money to buy me a small house when I graduated from college. She said she wanted me to have a safe place to start my life, somewhere I could call my own. I always thought it was just something she said to make me feel hopeful, but I appreciated it. I never asked about it again because I didn't want to seem greedy or ungrateful. Grandma had already done so much for me. My cousin Rebecca was a few years older than me. She was 31 at the time and had always been the type who needed to be the center of attention. Growing up, she often compared everything we did: grades, clothes, friends. If Grandma gave me a compliment, Rebecca would find a way to bring herself into the spotlight. I tried to ignore it, but I knew she was jealous. She once joked at a family dinner, saying, "Grandma loves Emily more than anyone." Everyone laughed, but her tone wasn't playful. There was something sharp behind it, something real. Despite that, I never thought she would actually do something cruel. We were family. I trusted her, even when she made me uncomfortable with her constant competition. After college, I had a hard time finding a steady job. I bounced between temporary positions and part-time work just to pay the bills. I lived in a small apartment with thin walls and noisy neighbors, but I didn't complain. I was making it on my own, and I was proud of that. During that time, Rebecca's life seemed perfect. She was married to Mark, a guy who worked in construction and had a steady income. Not long after I graduated, they announced they had bought a beautiful 2-story house just outside of town. Everyone was so happy for them. Grandma especially seemed proud. I remember her saying, "It's nice that both my girls are settling down." I thought she meant me too, but I didn't have anything to settle into except a small rented place with peeling paint. I visited Rebecca's new house once for a family gathering. It was cozy and well-furnished. She showed me around with this smug smile on her face, explaining how they were still making a few upgrades. I congratulated her sincerely because at that moment, I was truly happy for her. She had what I dreamed of having someday, a home, a stable life, a family of her own. But after Grandma's question at the party, everything started to make sense in a way that made my stomach twist. That house, the timing, the way Rebecca acted whenever Grandma brought up her gift for me, it all felt too connected. My mind started replaying small moments I'd ignored before. The way Rebecca changed the topic when Grandma talked about helping me. The uneasy look on her face that night at the party. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Could it be possible that the house Grandma thought she bought for me was actually Rebecca's? The more I thought about it, the more it felt like the truth had been sitting right in front of me the whole time, and I just hadn't seen it. I wanted to believe it was all just a mix-up, but deep down, something inside me whispered that this was only the beginning of something much darker. Grandma's 80th birthday was supposed to be a happy day. The whole family came together at her house, cousins, aunts, uncles, and a few old neighbors. The living room was full of laughter and music. The smell of roasted chicken and apple pie filled the air. Grandma was glowing. She loved having everyone together. I remember thinking how nice it was to see her smiling like that, surrounded by people who loved her. Dinner started off great. Everyone shared stories from the past, funny ones about when we were kids, and heartfelt ones about Grandpa, who had passed away years ago. Grandma sat at the head of the table, looking proud and content. Rebecca and Mark sat across from me. They seemed a little tense, whispering to each other every now and then, but I didn't think much of it at the time. As we were finishing our meal, Grandma turned to me with a sweet smile. She said, "How's the house I bought you, sweetie? Did you decorate it yet?" Her voice was cheerful, but I felt my entire body freeze. I could hear the sound of the clock ticking on the wall and the clinking of a few forks stopping midair. My heart started racing. I didn't know how to respond. "What house, Grandma?" I asked quietly, hoping I had misheard her. The room went silent. You could feel the air shift. Rebecca's face turned pale, and Mark's hand trembled as he set his fork down. Grandma looked at me, confused, as if I had just said something strange. "The house I bought for you after you graduated," she said slowly. "I sent the money to make sure it was all taken care of. Didn't you move in yet?" I looked around the table, trying to make sense of what she was saying. My mind was blank. Everyone's eyes were darting between me and Rebecca. My aunt coughed nervously. My uncle looked down at his plate, pretending not to notice. The silence felt endless. Rebecca forced a laugh and said, "Oh, Grandma, you must be mixing things up. You probably mean our house." Her tone was shaky, but she tried to sound casual. Grandma frowned. "No, Rebecca. I know what I did. I told you years ago I was buying a house for Emily. You helped me with the paperwork, remember?" The color drained completely from Rebecca's face. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, not saying a word. My stomach dropped as I watched Grandma's expression change from confusion to realization. I felt lost, like I had stepped into a conversation that wasn't meant for me. I tried to keep my voice calm, but it came out shaky. "Grandma, I don't have a house. I've been renting an apartment since I graduated. I never heard anything about this." She looked stunned. "But dear, I sent the money. I told Rebecca to handle it since you were out of state. She said she'd take care of everything." Everyone was staring now. Rebecca's hands were trembling, and Mark looked like he wanted to disappear. The tension was unbearable. Grandma's smile was gone. She sat back slowly, her face hardening as she turned toward Rebecca. That's when I realized this wasn't just confusion or a small mistake. Something was very, very wrong. And for the first time that night, I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't know it then, but that one innocent question from Grandma would uncover a betrayal that had been hiding in plain sight for years. Grandma's smile slowly faded as she looked at me, her eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "Emily," she said softly, "I wired the money for the house 5 years ago. It was supposed to be in your name, a surprise gift after you graduated." Her voice trembled a little, like she was trying to make sense of something that suddenly didn't add up. My stomach twisted. 5 years ago? That was exactly when I had graduated and started looking for a place to rent. I remembered struggling so much back then, counting every dollar just to get by. And now she was telling me there was supposed to be a house waiting for me all along? I felt my chest tighten. I had never received anything. No call, no letter, no money. Nothing. I looked at Grandma, completely lost. "I never knew about any of that," I said quietly. I never saw a dime. Grandma turned toward Rebecca, her expression sharp now. Rebecca, she said firmly, you handled the paperwork, didn't you? I trusted you to take care of it because Emily was still in school. What happened? Rebecca froze for a moment, then forced a nervous laugh. Oh, Grandma, you must be confused. Maybe the bank made an error or something. You know how those things go. Her voice was shaky, but she tried to sound lighthearted. I'm sure there's just some misunderstanding. But Grandma didn't laugh. She just stared at her, silent, her eyes narrowing. The room grew tense again. You could hear every small sound, the ticking clock, someone's chair creaking, a fork clinking against a plate. No one dared to say a word. I could feel my pulse racing in my ears. Rebecca kept talking, her words spilling out faster now. I mean, it's been years. Maybe there was some mix-up in the documents, or maybe you sent the money to the wrong account. She smiled awkwardly, glancing around for support, but no one met her eyes. Grandma shook her head slowly. No, she said in a steady voice. I remember everything clearly. I went to the bank myself. I told them to send the full amount to the real estate agency you recommended. You even gave me the contact information. Rebecca's fake smile disappeared. She looked pale again, glancing down at her hands. Well, I don't remember all the details, she muttered. It was such a long time ago. My throat felt dry. It was becoming painfully clear that Grandma wasn't mistaken. She remembered every step. And if what she was saying was true, then someone had taken that money that was meant for me, and used it for themselves. I couldn't even look at Rebecca. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I thought about all those nights I worked double shifts, skipping meals, crying in my tiny apartment because I couldn't afford anything better. Meanwhile, Grandma believed I was living comfortably in a home she'd bought for me. Grandma finally spoke again, her voice low but firm. Rebecca, I want you to bring me the documents tomorrow. Every single one of them. We'll sort this out once and for all. Rebecca nodded quickly, pretending to agree, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She knew the truth was catching up to her. And for the first time that night, I realized this wasn't going to end with just an apology. Something much bigger was about to unfold. After everyone left the party, I stayed behind to help Grandma clean up. She didn't say much, and neither did I. The cheerful energy from earlier was gone. The only sound was the clinking of dishes and the hum of the dishwasher. Before I left, Grandma looked at me and said firmly, Rebecca will bring the documents tomorrow. We'll get to the bottom of this. Her voice was calm, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She wasn't just angry, she was hurt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions. Could Rebecca really have done something like that? Could she have taken Grandma's money and used it for herself? The thought made me sick. I didn't want to believe it. This was my cousin, someone I grew up with, someone who had been like a sister to me. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces started fitting together in a way that made me feel cold inside. I remembered when Rebecca and Mark bought their house 5 years ago. It was right after I graduated. They'd claimed Mark got a big bonus at work, and that's how they could afford it. I never questioned it then, it seemed believable. But now, looking back, it all felt strange. Mark worked an average job, and they were never the kind of couple who saved much. Suddenly, they had a new house, new furniture, and even a brand new car a few months later. I had been proud of them at the time, but now it all seemed suspicious. There were other little things too, things I hadn't paid attention to before. Like how Rebecca always changed the topic whenever Grandma talked about her plans for me. Or the way she got tense whenever Grandma mentioned helping me out financially. She once told me in a half-joking tone, "You're lucky Grandma spoils you." Some of us had to figure life out on our own. I had brushed it off back then, but now her words replayed in my mind with a different meaning. My gut told me that Grandma's money never went toward a house for me. It went straight into Rebecca's hands. And she had used it to build the life Grandma intended for me. The thought made my chest ache. I remembered how many times I had called Rebecca for advice when I was struggling after college, how she'd told me to just be patient, and things would work out. All while she was living in the house that might have been bought with money meant for me. I sat up in bed and looked out the window at the quiet street. Everything felt heavy. I didn't want to believe my own family could betray me like this, but deep down, I knew what Grandma was going to find when she saw those documents. Rebecca could laugh it off all she wanted, but the truth was already cracking through the surface. Grandma was sharp. She didn't forget things easily, and she wouldn't let this go until she knew exactly what happened. Tomorrow, everything would come out. And even though I didn't know what the truth would bring, I knew it was going to change our family forever. The next morning, my phone rang early. It was Grandma. Her voice was shaking, and I could tell right away that she had been crying. She said, "Emily, I need you to come over." I didn't even ask why. I just grabbed my keys and drove to her house as fast as I could. My heart was pounding the whole way. When I got there, Grandma was sitting at the kitchen table with a pile of papers spread out in front of her. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked up at me and whispered, "She did it, Emily. She really did it." I sat down next to her, trying to stay calm. "What do you mean?" I asked. She pushed one of the papers toward me. It was a printed bank receipt showing a large money transfer made 5 years ago, the exact time she said she wired the money for the house. And at the bottom, right next to the line for the recipient's signature, was Rebecca's name, written in her handwriting. Grandma's voice cracked as she spoke. "She forged everything. The property I bought for you, it's in her name, not yours. She used my money to buy her house." Her hands were trembling as she wiped her tears. I trusted her, Emily. I trusted her like my own daughter. I stared at the papers in disbelief. There were several documents, bank transfers, emails printed out, even the purchase agreement for the house. Every single one pointed to Rebecca. My stomach turned as I saw her signature over and over again. It was like looking at physical proof of betrayal. I felt frozen. The same cousin who used to braid my hair when we were kids, who helped me move into my first apartment, had stolen something so huge, so meaningful. My throat tightened, and I couldn't find the right words. How could she do this? I finally whispered. Grandma shook her head slowly. She said she'd handle it because you were away. I thought I was helping you, giving you a start. I never imagined she would lie. Her voice broke, and she covered her face with her hands. Seeing her like that shattered me. She was the strongest person I knew, and now she looked small and broken. Anger started boiling inside me. Not just for myself, but for her. Rebecca hadn't only stolen from me, she had betrayed Grandma's trust, the one person who had always believed in family above all else. It wasn't just about money or a house. It was about love and loyalty, and she had destroyed both. I picked up the documents and looked through them again, my hands shaking. The house address was right there in black and white, the same one Rebecca and Mark had been living in all these years. The same house I had visited, complimented, and admired, completely unaware that it was meant to be mine. Grandma whispered, "I can't believe she could do this to us." Her voice was soft, full of pain. I reached over and held her hand. "We'll make this right," I told her, even though my heart felt heavy. In that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The person I once trusted the most had become a stranger. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Grandma didn't waste any time. That same afternoon, she called the whole family for a meeting at her house. Everyone showed up, my aunts, uncles, cousins, and even Rebecca and Mark. The atmosphere was tense from the start. No one really knew what to expect, but I could feel something big was about to happen. Grandma sat at the head of the table, her hands folded on top of a stack of papers. She looked calm, but I could tell she was holding back a storm. When everyone settled down, Grandma spoke clearly. "There's something we need to talk about," she began. Her tone was serious, and the room went silent. "It's about the money I sent for Emily's house." Rebecca's face immediately tightened. She let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, Grandma, we already talked about that. You must have mixed things up. That money was for me and Mark, remember? You said Emily wasn't ready to handle a house at that time." She smiled like she thought she could smooth things over. But Grandma didn't smile back. Her voice was steady when she said, "No, Rebecca, I didn't say that. I have proof." She reached into her folder and pulled out a letter. The paper was slightly yellowed, but the handwriting was clear. Grandma's handwriting. She handed the letter to my uncle, who read it out loud. It was written 5 years ago, right after I graduated. In it, Grandma congratulated me on finishing college and mentioned the little home she had bought for me to start my next chapter. She wrote about how proud she was and how she couldn't wait to visit me in my new place. The room was completely silent as he read. When he finished, Grandma looked directly at Rebecca. "That's the letter I wrote for Emily. The house was meant for her, not you. You were supposed to help with the paperwork because she was out of state. Instead, you forged the documents and took the house for yourself." Rebecca's smile vanished. "That's not true," she said quickly, her voice cracking. "You must be remembering it wrong. Maybe you just wrote that letter before you changed your mind." She was scrambling now, her words shaky and desperate. But Grandma cut her off. Enough. I spoke with the bank, the realtor, and the notary. Every signature you used was forged. Every lie you told is right here in these documents. She tapped the papers on the table. You didn't just steal from Emily. You betrayed this entire family. No one said a word. My uncle leaned back in his chair, stunned. My aunt shook her head in disbelief. Mark sat beside Rebecca, looking pale and defeated, unable to make eye contact with anyone. Rebecca started crying, saying she only did it because she thought I wouldn't be able to manage the responsibility, that she didn't mean to hurt anyone. But the excuses sounded hollow. Grandma just stared at her, disappointment written all over her face. You were like a daughter to me, she said softly. And this is how you repay me? Tears filled my eyes, but I stayed quiet. I couldn't bring myself to say anything. The truth was out now, completely and undeniably. The room felt heavy, like all the air had been sucked out of it. Rebecca's lies had finally fallen apart, and there was no more hiding behind fake smiles or excuses. The damage was done, and nothing she said could take it back. Grandma stood up, her voice calm but final. We'll let the law handle the rest, she said. But as far as this family is concerned, I can't trust you anymore. Rebecca lowered her head, silent, as everyone else sat in stunned silence. In that moment, it felt like our family had broken into two pieces, before the truth and after it. Nothing would ever be the same again. After that family meeting, nothing felt the same. Everyone was angry, shocked, and disappointed. No one knew what to say or how to act. The betrayal tore the family apart. Some relatives stopped talking to Rebecca completely, while others tried to stay neutral. But it was impossible. The truth had burned through every bit of trust we once had. Family dinners were canceled, group chats went silent, and suddenly, everything that used to feel warm and safe now felt tense and cold. Grandma wasted no time taking action. She met with her lawyer the next day and started the process of fixing everything. It wasn't easy. There were months of legal work, endless paperwork, and meetings with officials. But Grandma was determined. She said, if I don't stand up for what's right, she'll never learn what she's done. Eventually, the court confirmed what Grandma already knew. Rebecca had forged the documents. Every signature, every lie was right there in black and white. The property that was supposed to be mine was transferred back to Grandma's name, and she immediately made sure I was listed as the rightful owner. Rebecca and Mark were ordered to move out. When they realized they were losing everything, they came to Grandma's house, begging for forgiveness. Rebecca cried and said she was sorry, that it was a mistake, that she didn't know what she was thinking. Mark stood beside her, silent, looking ashamed. But Grandma didn't waver. Her voice was steady when she said, "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." Then she closed the door. That was the last time she ever spoke to them. Even though justice was done, it came at a heavy cost. Grandma wasn't the same after all this. The stress and heartbreak weighed on her. She kept saying she felt guilty for trusting the wrong person. I tried to remind her that none of this was her fault, but she couldn't stop blaming herself. She would sit quietly in her favorite chair, staring at the window, whispering, "I raised her better than that." I stayed by her side every day. I helped with her medication, cooked her meals, and made sure she rested. Some nights, she would cry softly, saying she wished she could go back and change how things happened. Watching her like that broke my heart. She had always been so strong, but this betrayal had taken something from her that she couldn't get back. When she started feeling weak, I took her to the doctor, and they said the stress was affecting her health. I could see it in her face. She was tired, not just physically, but emotionally. Still, she always tried to smile when she saw me. She'd take my hand and say, "At least you know the truth now, Emily. At least the house is finally yours." I would nod, but deep down it didn't feel like a victory. We had lost something much bigger than a house. We had lost the trust that held our family together. And no matter what happened next, I knew things could never go back to how they were before that one question changed everything. A year passed before everything was finally settled. The court process was long, draining, and full of moments that made me question everything I knew about family. But in the end, justice was done. The house was officially transferred into my name, just as Grandma had always wanted. I should have felt happy, proud even, but I didn't. When I stood outside the house holding the final papers, I felt hollow inside. It didn't feel like a victory. I had lost too much along the way. Rebecca and I no longer spoke, and honestly, I didn't think we ever would again. She and Mark moved out quietly months before the case ended. No goodbye, no apology that meant anything. Just silence. Sometimes I'd pass by their old neighborhood and feel a strange ache, not for the house, but for the cousin I thought I knew. The one who used to share secrets with me when we were kids. That version of her was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't recognize anymore. The whole situation had also changed how I saw family. The warmth I once felt when we gathered for holidays was gone. Everyone kept their distance, afraid to take sides or stir up old wounds. Even when we were all in the same room, it felt like there were invisible walls between us. I missed the feeling of being surrounded by people I trusted completely. Now, I wasn't sure if that trust could ever come back. Grandma tried to stay strong through the court battle, but I could see how much it wore her down. Every hearing, every reminder of the betrayal, took a piece of her strength. She never complained, but I saw it in her eyes. After the final ruling, she hugged me and said, "Now you can finally start your life, sweetheart." Her voice was warm but weak. She looked tired, like she had been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Not long after that, her health started to decline. She became quieter, spending most of her days resting or sitting by the window, watching the birds outside. I tried to be there as much as I could, cooking her favorite meals, reading to her, or just sitting beside her while she napped. I didn't want her to feel alone. One morning, she didn't wake up. I found her still and peaceful, with a faint smile on her face. My heart broke all over again. Losing her felt worse than anything I had ever been through. After the funeral, I went back to the house, the one she had fought so hard to give me. On the kitchen table, there was a letter with my name on it in her handwriting. Inside, she had written, "Always know your worth and never let betrayal break your heart." I read it over and over again, tears streaming down my face. I held that letter to my chest and cried for hours. In that quiet house, surrounded by everything she had given up for me, I finally understood what she meant. It wasn't just about the house. It was about learning to stand tall, even after being broken. Grandma had left me more than a home. She had left me strength. Now, every time I walk through that house, I feel Grandma's love in every corner. It's in the soft creak of the floors, in the sunlight that fills the living room every morning, and in the little garden she always dreamed I'd have. Sometimes, I can almost hear her humming in the kitchen or calling my name from the porch. It's not just a house to me, it's a reminder of her strength, her kindness, and the way she always believed in me, even when life got hard. After everything that happened, Rebecca moved out of town. No one really knows where she went. Some say she and Mark started over somewhere else, but I never asked. I didn't want to know. There's a part of me that still hurts when I think about her. Not because I hate her, but because I miss who she used to be. She was more like a sister than a cousin to me once. But now, all that's left are memories and a painful lesson I'll never forget. I've learned that family isn't always what it seems. It can be your greatest source of love, or your deepest wound. The people you trust the most can be the ones who hurt you the hardest. But even through all that pain, I learned something important. Love and betrayal both have the power to shape you. One builds you up, and the other breaks you down, but sometimes the breaking is what makes you stronger. There are days when I still feel angry. I wonder why Rebecca did what she did. Was it greed? Jealousy? Or something else I'll never understand? But then I think of Grandma. She wouldn't want me to live with bitterness in my heart. She'd tell me to let it go, to keep moving forward, and to use the pain as a reminder of my worth. So that's what I try to do. I've slowly made the house my own. I painted the walls a soft cream color, added Grandma's favorite curtains, and filled the shelves with photos of happier times. Each picture tells a story, birthdays, holidays, and lazy summer days when everything felt simple. Those memories remind me that love existed here before the lies, and that's what I choose to hold on to. Sometimes, when I sit on the porch in the evening, I look at the sky and think about that night, the night Grandma asked, "How are you living in the house I bought you?" It was such an innocent question, yet it changed everything. It tore the mask off the lies and showed the truth, no matter how painful it was. And even though it brought heartbreak, it also brought clarity. That question started a storm, but it ended with strength. I learned who I could trust, who I couldn't, and most importantly, who I was without the approval of others. Grandma always said, "You don't need anyone's permission to be happy, Emily. Just be brave enough to stand on your own." Now, when I lock the front door each night, I whisper a quiet thank you to her. For the house, for the lessons, for the love that still fills these walls. Betrayal may have scarred me, but it also made me stronger, exactly the way Grandma hoped it would.